Okay, so we are going to see SSR, that is server side rendering in Angular. So we'll first understand the concept of server side rendering. So the server side rendering generates full HTML for a page on a server, and then it serves to a client in response to navigation. It avoids additional requests for initial data fetching and templating, since it handles before the browser gets response. So there are some advantages and also some cons of this server side rendering mechanism. So we'll see the pros. uh, so in server side rendering, initial page load is faster. Sorry. uh, this server side rendering is best for static sites, and server side rendering is best for search engine can crawl the site for better SEO. The cons of this mechanism: uh, we need to make a frequent server request in this way. Then every time we have full page reloads, and then though the initial page load is faster, overall rendering process is slow because of the frequent server requests and every time full page load happens. So this is the server side rendering. So we'll see how to do a server side rendering in Angular. So Angular Universal is a technology that renders Angular app server side, where the normal single page application executes in a browser. Angular Universal executes on server. It generates static application pages that later gets bootstrapped in our browser. So the Angular application, in this way we can render it fast, and user can see the layout of page before it gets fully interactive. We can easily prepare our Angular application for a server-side rendering using the CLI. We can make it in simply following the two steps. First is add ng universal package in our project, and then serve the application uh, by enabling server-side rendering. So here we have installed this uh, Angular Universal package. For example, npm install @ng universal slash express engine. So this package will help us to generate our server side rendered application. And the next is we'll run a script to run our server side rendered application. The script is npm run dev :ssr. So the script will run our server side rendered application. Okay, so the next is Ivy rendering engine. So Ivy is the rendering engine used for Angular application, and the Ivy is the fourth complete rewrite of Angular rendering engine. Ivy is now by default enabled in Angular application, and this Ivy made huge improvements in Angular application. So Ivy can compile the components more independently with each other. Then there are two key aspects that Ivy considered, that is locality and tree shaking. So the first is locality. This is the process of compiling each component independently with its own local information that rebuilds faster by compiling partial changes and not the entire project files. So this will increase our build speed. Then the second is tree shaking. So the tree shaking means removing unused codes during the build process. During build process, tree shaking uses static analysis and eliminates unused and unreferenced code. So the features of AV: first is lazy loaded components. In Angular 9, entry components is deprecated now, and it will be removed in future versions of Angular. With Ivy, any component can be lazily loaded and dynamically rendered. Then the second is improvements to differential loading. So the differential loading means build an application for lower versions of JavaScript and then it build for higher versions. So the Angular application first builds for ES5 and then the ES6 or ES 2015. But now using Ivy, Angular application builds first for ES 2015 and then the same bundle uses to transpile into ES5. So in this way, second time Angular don't build the application. Instead, it just transpile builds for lower version. And the third is AOT compilation everywhere. AOT is enabled by default in builds, dev server, and the test build also. How to make Ivy enabled in existed project means below the ninth version of Angular. So we can enable by simply following these steps. Init's config.app.json will make this enable Ivy property to true in a Angular compiler option.